What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Back to 07, man. I love coming back to this time period. Peak fandom for me around here. I watched every Raw and SmackDown, every match, every segment, everything. I can't say the same now, obviously. I attribute that to getting a bit older, or maybe the product's just not too interesting. I mean, I watched the pay-per-views and stuff, but it's a good feeling to be making a video from this era of SmackDown. I thought, Edge, I haven't made something on him in a while, and I should know that's deliberate. You know, there's a reason you don't see a Cena, HBK, and Orton all that often. With that said, I had this video in mind for months. It was either this or Survivor Series 2003, which I think is coming later this week, hopefully. Don't count on it, though. Anyways, 2007 to me was really fun. Barring, obviously, the Benoit tragedy, I loved the main event scene on both Monday and Friday nights. The mid-card on SmackDown was cool. ECW towards the end of the year is a gem in my eyes. Might be a hot take. And one person that really shined bright in 2007 was the Rated R superstar Edge. Since Edge was a certified main eventer, he was given the best opportunity in his 9-year career with WWE. That was to lead SmackDown. Obviously, the opportunity came by with a lot of luck, but still, it was an opportunity he had to make the best out of because the star power was rapidly dwindling in WWE. Okay, here we go. Rated R superstar, ultimate opportunist, JBL on commentary shouting the lights are on bright, whatever. Right now, let's get into it. In 2007, the WWE was plagued with a bunch of injuries. Funny enough, nearly all of the guys who suffered an injury were main eventers. Only Mr. Kennedy wasn't the main eventer, although he was well on his way before suffering that injury. Triple H in January, The Undertaker in May, Bobby Lashley in July, Shawn Michaels in May, John Cena got injured on October. It was bad. Hell, even Edge himself got injured during the year. But before all of SmackDown's main event scene got swallowed up, the Rated R superstar was a mainstay on Monday nights. He regularly competed in main event matches against the likes of John Cena, Shawn Michaels, and Randy Orton. On SmackDown, The Undertaker suffered a little setback. Initially, the WWE wanted to give him a long run since he hadn't held a world title in nearly 5 years. Just to note, these are Dirt Sheet reports. You might hear about them throughout the video. Some of them are true, some of them might not be, although I believe nearly every single one of them is true. So Taker was going to hold the title for a long time. But he tore a tendon in his bicep and was going to be out for months. Funny enough, the feud between himself and Batista was going to conclude inside Hell in a Cell at Judgment Day. So who was going to step up to that challenge? Well, according to Dave Meltzer and a couple of other guys in May of 2007, there was a bunch of stars considered for following The Undertaker. Some of them were unexpected to me, Finlay. The reason why he wasn't champion was because he was in the veteran role. They thought he was too old or something like that. MVP, it was too early. Mark Henry, he was injury prone, and he might not be able to deliver on pay-per-view, because the world champion has to have great matches and whatever. Randy Orton was another one considered, but since he smashed and destroyed a hotel room, that idea was shot down. Mr. Kennedy, the week before, was seen as the best choice for obvious reasons. Edge was strongly considered, and we all know what happened. And the weirdest of them all, not necessarily because of the scenario, but because of the person themselves, Chris Benoit. Why wasn't he made champion? Well, the reports, they say that the head writer, Michael Hayes at the time, thought he couldn't cut a good promo. Due to that, it was widely believed that Chris's main event days were all but over. The choices were narrowed down to Kennedy, Edge, and Orton. We all know who they initially chose, but he suffered an injury. As for how it went down on TV, here we go. On the May 7, 2007 episode of Raw, Mr. Kennedy was claiming once again that he's cashing in at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando. Hell, the guy even had a graphic showing the number of days left till he officially cashes in. That's how into it he was, and he was actually going to cash in, but not at WrestleMania 24. Backstage, Edge for some reason was in a mood, and this was because of the lack of main event opportunities. He's wanting, Shawn Michaels gets a title match or whatever, and he reminded Kennedy that he treated the briefcase like a world title. Obviously, the briefcase holder didn't really want to accept the challenge, but he eventually did. And they scream, oh, man.
Mr. Kennedy!
As for how that match went, Edge was the smartest bastard in the arena. He didn't wait for the bell to ring. He got his licks in before the match even began. By the time Kennedy entered the ring, he was damaged goods. Despite the referee's warnings, Mr. Kennedy wanted to go through with it, and that ended up being the stupidest decision because Edge speared the main event push out of him to become Mr. Money in the Bank. The Rated R superstar got another shot in, and JR was proclaiming him to be the ultimate opportunist, which I assume was the first time that was ever mentioned, although I could be wrong. Please correct me down below if you have an idea. So where was he going to go from here? Well, first of all, as a kid watching this, you're not going to assume that Edge was going to cash in on Friday. So it was shocking to me. Obviously, WWE.com reported the cash in. Anyways, on that week's SmackDown, Edge decided it's the right time to cash in. This was after The Undertaker's cage match with Batista, and after Mark Henry returned an assault to the champ. Edge's appearance was met with dissatisfaction from both Michael Cole and JBL, who I should note was as heel as it gets. So the bell rings. Edge goes for the cover, only for The Undertaker to kick out. He kicked out again, and doubt set into Edge's mind. Like, it was this. It's do or die. If he loses, that's it. The beaten Undertaker tried sitting up, but was unsuccessful. And then the sick Piranha, Michael Cole's words, then hit the spear, and he was the new World Heavyweight Champion. This time around, Edge was no longer going to be a transitional champion. He was going to be the name and face of SmackDown. Batista was obviously the big baby face, but for some odd reason, Vince didn't want him as champion just yet. Despite being the new champ, Edge still wanted to add insult to injury, and he whacked The Undertaker with a briefcase. The fans booed, Michael Cole's criticizing him, and this planted the seeds for an eventual feud. Well, I should know I gotta do a better job at it, because that was one of my earlier videos. I have to dive into it, because that thing was like 9 minutes, when this feud deserves like 30. So if I do that one, expect it to be different. Now, was Edge happy about the move? Hell yeah. Not only was he the world champion with a fresh start, but there was someone else he was going to avoid who was on Raw. I'll get into that real soon. Anyways, on the May 14th, 2007 episode of Raw, Edge was prepared to give a farewell speech now that he was a SmackDown star. The fans booed him, and it was obvious that he was ready to rub it in. He said that everybody saw him on Raw last week normally, but then he went on to have the greatest week of any superstar in the history of this industry. Edge said that he could have cashed it in on John Cena, but it was a been there, done that situation, and so he cashed it on possibly the greatest champion there is, The Undertaker. They rolled the footage, and JR was disgusted. The Rated R superstar then added that he thought of leaving the fans with one last great Edge match, but realized the fans don't deserve it, and second, the Great Khali wasn't there. I don't know what the hell that meant. Also, he wanted to be in good condition to face Batista at Judgment Day. So instead of one great Edge match, he was just going to leave. Unfortunately for him, Shawn Michaels decides to interrupt. Why is that? He thought Edge should just leave. You know, you're here to talk about how you're champion or whatever. Just get out of here. The champion decided, you know what? He took it as a challenge. And so he challenged the Heartbreak Kid to a main event match. He also said that he was going to enjoy beating him just like The Undertaker. Now, if it was anybody else, Edge would have tried weaseling out of a potential match. But since HBK had some minor setbacks, it would have been cherry on top of a historic week for him. Unfortunately for himself, he took a huge L in the middle of the ring. It was as clean as it could get. And the reason why he lost, well, this is what I found. Raw head writer Brian Gewirtz was credited or blamed, depending on your point of view, for booking Shawn Michaels to pin World Heavyweight Champion Edge on his last night on Raw. Gewitz's explanation was that the guy leaving the territory, or Brand in this case, has to job on the way out. Triple H was the power behind the move because when it was questioned, he supported it, which made it close to a done deal. There's a belief backstage that Triple H doesn't want Edge to succeed, noting that he tried to block all previous plans of him moving to SmackDown and winning the title until Mr. Kennedy went down with an injury, and at this point, he couldn't reasonably block it anymore. There was vocal opposition to Edge being pinned, saying that it makes the SmackDown title and champion look secondary. Triple H's argument was that HBK is the biggest tenured star in the brand, and he had just pulled over Khali, and he needs a big win because he'll be wrestling Cena on pay-per-view again within the next few shows. On the other hand, Michaels suggested doing a non-finish, since from his perspective, the key point of the match was for him to be beat down by Randy Orton to promote their match for tonight at Judgment Day. Michaels said he didn't want to bury the SmackDown title, but was told it was Vince McMahon's decision, and he wasn't changing it. As you might imagine, Edge wasn't pleased with the booking decision, and he wasn't hiding his dissatisfaction backstage that night. Edge is said to be very happy to move over to SmackDown because internally, it's considered less political, not to mention that he doesn't have to deal with a certain wrestler as much anymore. Weird story. Do I believe it? I think so, because Triple H, he kind of buried Edge a couple of years ago, you know, in the promo. He said you and RVD never made money, and if you guys were champions, WCW would be running the wrestling industry or something like that.
Edge, Rob Van Dam. If any of those guys had been the face of the WWE, we'd all be working for Ted Turner right now.
You were the WWE champ. I took a nap for 20 minutes and I missed the whole thing.
Yeah, but now he's off to SmackDown where he doesn't have to deal with the game. Edge was given pyro from here on, and he finally delivered a promo on the Blue Show. JBL praised the ever-living hell out of him taking a 180 stance, you know? Last week, he was like, don't do it, it's not right. And now he's like, oh, this guy deserves it. He capitalized on the situation or whatever. The new champion wasn't really satisfied with Teddy Long's introduction, and he called himself champion to a chorus of boos. For some reason, he stated that he is ashamed to be a Canadian citizen, and he would also be ashamed if he was an American citizen because he had to go so far away from North America to get any respect from fans. You know, he went to New Zealand, Abu Dhabi, France, and another place that lacked respect for him was Monday Night Raw. This got him sick because he defeated just about everybody put in front of him. He was, however, willing to give the SmackDown audience a chance to judge talent based on their skills, not popularity. Edge also said that he was going to take on any and all comers when Teddy Long reminded him of the title match at Judgment Day. The Rated R superstar claimed he wasn't afraid of Batista, and as a matter of fact, he said that he did in 3 seconds what Batista couldn't do in 3 months, and that's defeat The Undertaker. That line always got him heat, you know. Why is that? Because he simplified it. If you put it simply, yeah, he beat The Undertaker in 3 seconds. And out came Batista. It seemed like Edge was intimidated by the Animal's presence, and the former champion congratulated Edge on his victory before reminding him that the title is his. Hell, he even apologized for needing it back, Sorry, but I'm going to need it back. He then shook his hand before pulling him in. This was the only confrontation Edge had with Batista because the pay-per-view was that Sunday. The match itself was decent. It was mostly overshadowed by their sequels for an obvious reason, because they were better. Edge had a little promo set to Ozzy Osbourne's I Don't Wanna Stop, which made him seem like this big badass that was very intelligent. The match was short, which I found out was due to CM Punk and Elijah Burke going a little long. Also, maybe it's because of Batista's minor hamstring injury. Anyways, as expected, the Rated R Superstar was cutting the Animal down to size. He worked on the leg and the shoulder. The challenger, though, was a fighter. He took all that punishment, yet found a way to courageously make a comeback. I loved how Batista was selling, at some points with the minor details. Many criticized Batista's in-ring work, but he told a story in there, basically. Like his run, I remember a bunch of storytelling he did in the ring. The fans were fully on his side near the end. The crowd was loud as hell. Edge getting his ass kicked got them cheering, and Batista was absolutely unstoppable. That is until he felt something in his knee, and Edge capitalized to retain his title, and he was basically clutched like Kobe in 07. The situation may have seemed a little dire, but once he found that window of opportunity, that small window, he stole the victory. He 100% made the most out of it, and now he stands still the world champion. Later on that week on SmackDown, he discussed the match of Judgment Day and where he goes from here on. On if the title victory was tainted, he didn't give a damn. He took advantage of the opportunity, and so he stands here as the World Heavyweight Champion. And he also stated that whenever he says the Rated R era is here, it's not just a catchphrase, it's a fact. Before he can finish his promo, Theodore Long interrupted. He let him know that his next challenger will be determined in a fatal 4-way match between Kane, Mark Henry, Finlay, and Batista. Edge didn't really care, though, stating that he's a fighting champion, he'll take on any and all comers, but Teddy put that claim to the test by announcing that the title match at One Night Stand will be a steel cage match. As expected, he got a little worried. Later that night, he sat at ringside providing his insights as Batista punched his ticket to Jacksonville. The world champion was clearly irritated at the results, claiming that it's unfair that he's going to be locked in a cage with an animal. And seeing as he's going to have a match with Batista, the Rated R Superstar extended an invite to his one-night stand challenger for the cutting edge. He once again claimed that Batista was intimidating, blah, 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 I'm better than him, whatever. And JBL foreshadowed what's to come, saying that Edge is unstoppable, and the only thing that could end the Rated R era is an injury. Anyways, Edge was happy to have his opponent on the show, but he straight up told him that he's not intimidated by him. Hell, he even flipped it the other way. Batista is intimidated by Edge. And the Animal was ready to break the verbal agreement, He teased it by taking off his jacket, although he claimed it was hot in there. The champ once again said, I did what you couldn't do in 3 months, but Batista reminded him of how it went down. Edge stole the title. He didn't win it fair and square like Batista did. The Rated R Superstar once again went back to Batista in his fear of losing, stating that there's a fear of choking in his mind. He wished Dave good luck, and he passed it back and forth. Yes, you do. You need the luck. No, I don't. Blah, blah, blah. Push came to shove, and it escalated with a right hand from Batista. So that's the build-up to the match. Also, Edge lost his voice, I should know. Speaking of their match at One Night Stand, yeah, pretty good. Once again, my opinion. Awesome promo with that song, Famous. It gives a pure 2007 vibe. SVR 2008, obviously. JBL's making Edge seem like some sort of Hulk Hogan-esque champion, stating that even if Batista was at his best, it still might not be enough. Anyways, the match was pretty competitive. Batista looked pretty strong out there despite the results, and that's one thing I liked about his booking from this era. It wasn't this unstoppable monster like Cena, WWW. No, he was vulnerable. He actually lost a lot of matches. That's one thing to know. He did kick Edge's ass, but it didn't matter this time around. He had all the momentum, but screwed up the Batista bomb, and Edge climbed out of there. He almost escaped, but Batista managed to drag him down, only to get 2 low blows to fall down onto the ropes, which probably hurt more than both of those low blows combined. The Animal opted to escape from the door, and this nearly got him the title, but he missed out by a couple of seconds. So the Rated R Superstar showed that intelligence triumphs skill. As good as Batista was, he just couldn't master the Ultimate Opportunist. He couldn't, figure him out. Yes, good match. It's not my favorite in the trilogy, but still, it was enjoyable when I watched it last time. Later that week on SmackDown, Edge faced Chris Benoit in what would be Benoit's last great WWE match. Vince McMahon, I don't know what the hell he was on that week, announced the last chance match for Batista Vengeance. That Vince thing is a whole other story, but about that Benoit match, there's obviously a reason the match isn't talked about. I assume it's because of the events of later that month, because of the fact that it was so close to the tragedy. But if you look at the match in that time frame, June 6, 2007, it was actually one of WWE's best matches of the year. I'm not going to spoil the results, but if you're comfortable watching Benoit matches, especially from this year, go ahead. With that said, the build-up to the Vengeance match was lacking due to the extensive focus on Mr. McMahon's storyline death. Batista speared Edge. Edge stood tall the week before the pay-per-view after spearing Ric Flair and Batista himself. The final episode saw Flair and the Animal beat the Rated R Superstar and Montel Vontavious Porter. Actually, Batista pinned the world champion, showing that he can do it. He's capable of pinning him. About their match at Vengeance, it's my favorite of the trilogy. Why is that? I have a fond memory of watching it back then. Number 2, high stakes. And 3, it was the conclusion. The steel cage match would have been objectively better, but I prefer this one. Before the match, there was a little backstage segment between Edge and Cena. They were blaming each other for Vince's demise. Cena got Edge to say some potentially incriminating words if he is found guilty. Cena called him a pussbag, to which the world champion stated that he's capable of vicious, vile things that Cena can't comprehend. And the detective on the Vince investigation took notice and I guess took him in for some questioning. Anyways, the match, the promo, I liked them. Gone, that song is on. The promos were just about as good as the matches. That's one thing for sure. It did seem like both men could have had a better match, but it was good enough in my eyes. It might have been bad in your eyes, but for me it was good. A reminder that if Batista loses, he can't challenge Edge for that title. One thing that probably irritated a bunch was the outcome. First of all, let me talk about the match itself. Batista felt like an underdog in a way. He was screwing up during the match and Edge actually took control of the big guy. Once again, he went for the arm, the shoulder to be specific. The Rated R Superstar at one point countered a Samoan drop right into a submission hold. He was very clever, and once again, his intelligence played a part in the result. Eventually, Batista got over the arm and was finally back into it. There were some near falls, Edge hit the Impaler. Batista rolled him up. Edge did it also. It was very dramatic. Counters, roll-ups, false finishes. And the moment Batista hit that spear, the fans were going absolutely bonkers. It felt like the end of Edge's title reign. But the champ went for a blatant low blow to get disqualified. Michael Cole shouting that it's a crime when Teddy Long comes out and restarts the match and stated that if Edge deliberately gets himself disqualified, he loses the title. The fans were cheering. Michael Cole was satisfied and Batista had a second chance. Unfortunately for him, he received a spear. He kicks out. Okay, it's got to be Batista's night, right? Like, if you're watching this for the first time and you see him kick out with a spear, you're thinking it's his night. The fans are going crazy. Edge is doubting himself. Right. It has to be. Edge almost got himself disqualified once again, but remembered what Teddy Long said. Batista attempts the powerbomb, but isn't able to, and instead clotheslines Edge right out of the ring. This is where the Animal showed just how smart he was. First of all, he hits the Batista bomb on Edge, right? So the victory is in sight. Well, he tosses Edge back in, and what follows was pretty hilarious if you think about it. He got himself counted out. How the hell do you get yourself counted out when you're that close to the ring? Bro, just dive back in. He was in total control. Yet he screwed himself over. And yes, he did that expression. There it is. Batista, though, wasn't finished. He had another powerbomb, and Edge was finally off to the next challenger. Who is it going to be? Well, first of all, Batista beat Edge clean on SmackDown that week, but it wasn't for the title. I dived into the past, the internet, once again to see what the original plans might have been for Edge's next challenger. Apparently, it was going to be Rey Mysterio. The idea was nixed because Rey wasn't at 100% just yet, and Vince feared Rey will re-injure himself. So was someone else. I mean, Rey was on the cover of WWE Magazine. He was on the cover of the Great American Bash, although that doesn't guarantee someone will return. Well, who knows? Maybe they had some thought into it. On the July 6, 2007 episode of SmackDown, Edge refused to compete. Teddy, though, wanted the World Heavyweight Champion on his show and asked him to at least host the Cutting Edge. Teddy Long proclaimed Edge's guest to be the biggest star who's ever been on the show. Yes, The Rock is back. I always knew he wanted to have a program with Edge. Anyways, the Rated R Superstar came out to close the show with the Cutting Edge, and for some reason, Theodore Long had it out against him because look at the sea of signs. This angered him, obviously. Edge refused to give in to the negative energy and was ready to ask this individual the tough questions. And out he came. Kane. Okay, that was cap, that was lie, that was clickbait. Teddy promised the biggest star in Kane's out here, but he's not wrong, though. Kane was probably the largest superstar to appear on the show, so there's that. But yeah, that's misleading. Edge backed off the big red machine and awkwardly tried to chat with him. He gave props to Kane for bringing the Inferno match to the WWE. He praised his motion picture See No Evil before undermining his accolades. Like, while Kane is a former world champion, he, Edge, is a 3-time champion. The Ultimate Opportunist made it seem like they ran out of time and tried leaving, but it was only just getting started. Kane straight up said that he doesn't like Edge before whacking him. He sent the champion sailing to the outside, and the Rated R Superstar shouted Kane will never be a guest on the Cutting Edge again. Hell, he'll never step foot in the ring with him ever again, and Edge's kryptonite came out. Seriously, this guy had it out against Edge. As a matter of fact, this guy's two biggest enemies are Edge and JBL. He revealed that Kane was arranged as a special guest for the Cutting Edge because he's the opponent at the Great American Bash. There it is. The match is official. Unfortunately, though, things went south, and I mean very south, before the pay-per-view. On the July 13th, 2007 episode of SmackDown, Friday the 13th, I should note, a paranoid Edge was getting prepared to have a little Mardi Gras celebration. Kane was playing mind games throughout the night. Edge was looking over his shoulder at nearly every single moment. He was disturbing the champion, and he was getting freaked out. At the end of the night, Edge put it past him to go out and celebrate because, SmackDown was in New Orleans. He was out there without a worry in the world despite his impending match at the Bash. The reason for this celebration was widely unknown, but the assumption was that he was scared of Kane and he wanted to let loose a little. Now, the funny part about all of this was the fact that Edge felt like a babyface. Just look at this.
New Orleans! They're giving you nothing compared to what I'm going to give you. The biggest party this city's ever seen.
And it was on. The beads were thrown out. He called some guy Reggie Bush, and all was good until the paranoia set in. He speared someone that wasn't Kane, and funny enough, he was right behind him. Kane destroyed the party goers, and it's hard to pinpoint when Edge suffered that injury. Now, initially, the expectation was that it was minor, and there was no reason for Edge to relinquish the title. But Raw and SmackDown began the following week. Teddy Long announced he's going to forfeit the title. Now, I did find out when Edge tore the pectoral muscle, and this is what he had to say about it in an interview back in November of 2007 with Marvel. Link is down below. And I quote, "I actually was having a Mardi Gras party. It was in the ring in New Orleans with floats and all the characters. I speared somebody I thought was Kane and came right down on my knee, which drove into my armpit and pulled the pec muscle completely off. I had nothing holding it together in there. I finished up what I had to do, but I knew right away that one's gone. I didn't think it was as bad as it was because I had torn my other pec before, but I only tore half of that one and actually thought this time was not as bad as that one. But it was. They told me that generally, if it doesn't hurt that much, it's worse because of the blunt trauma. So I learned something new that I didn't really want to." And then he was asked if the injuries up there were the most bizarre. This is what he had to say, quote for quote. It doesn't really hold up, right? But it's always things like that where injuries happen. It's like something from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Stuff like that shouldn't happen. JBL had his doubts over Edge's future, and the champion himself seemed completely miserable. Despite being at his lowest, the fans loudly chanted, "You suck, you suck," and it goes to show what kind of a heel he was. He demanded proper lighting, and he gave us his life story and how he wanted to become a world champion the fans could be proud of. They didn't care and still chanted, "You suck." It was louder this time around. He said that every time he got injured, he came back for all of them. And there was people that doubted whether he could return, and he wanted to prove to himself that he could. Edge called this, the ring, his home, before mentioning how he got injured on SmackDown last week. The champion saw Kane attacking him as gaining an advantage in a pay-per-view match, and blamed him for depriving the fans of the match. Before Edge left, he gave everyone a tribute video to watch. It's got some Full House, Family Matters type music, inspirational. This garnered some heat, obviously. He had tears in his eyes, and Teddy Long told him to just let go of the title. He even told him to come back, win a few matches, and then he'll receive another title shot. Teddy Long announced a 20-man battle royal for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship, and the Rated R Superstar refused to let go. He even asked the fans and Teddy Long, "How could you move on so quickly?" He tearfully shouted that he gave his all, and he wanted the champ to be crowned after 30 days. Teddy Long, though, said that he couldn't do that, just let it go, Edge. Just relinquish the title. And eventually he came to terms. Edge realized he was a 3-time champion and promised to return and make it 4, and it was official. Edge was no longer the World Heavyweight Champion. Now that's in the history books. I think you know who was the next champion. I held off on that video in particular due to this, so expect the Great Khali's record-breaking title reign soon on the channel. I want to do the Batista feud, basketballs don't hold grudges, all that kinds of stuff, because no one ever seems to talk about the title reign itself. They talked about how the matches sucked, on how he held the title upside down. Well, I want to take a look at his promos. Anyways, that's Edge's title reign. I had fun making this video. I like going back to the dirt sheet stuff and seeing what was going on, the rumors and all that stuff. And I believe almost all of the stuff that I posted here. A lot of stuff is pretty reasonable, made sense to me. I'll dive into the rest of Edge's story, his feud with Batista and The Undertaker, all that stuff, because the original video just absolutely sucked, so yeah. Now, what did you guys think of Edge's title reign? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit an Impaler DDT on the like button, and perhaps a spear on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.